All right, welcome to Home Service Marketing, the podcast. Hey, Andrew.
Episode 2.
Episode 2. Here we are.
We're doing this thing.
We're doing it.
I'm excited.
We got all this equipment now, so we have to do it.
We have to do it.
So we're talking about local service ads today and best practices, right? What to do, how to do it, some of the things that we've seen happen with some of our clients, and just some general guidelines on to get the most out of this program. And I really like this program, especially when you combine a traditional paid search strategy to it. It really gets the client a lot more opportunities because they have a lot more real estate on page. But there's been some changes. So let's go ahead and just let's talk about some basic best practices. When you log in and you go into your account, I guess what would be like one of the first things that you should be doing day to day in that account?
One thing I check on is budget, right? I mean, I want to make sure I'm pacing right on budget. I don't want to be just spending, if I have a limited budget, so even if you set a budget, Google will spend your money, right? So it's, and that's one thing I notice on my accounts. It seems to do very well. There's a couple obviously different types of budget, ways to go about setting your budget. You can just say maximize my conversions, or you can, really hone in on what you want, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's an automated component, and then there's the manual component, which is fairly new. I think it's about maybe a year and a half. There was a test pilot. We've seen it roll into some accounts maybe 2 years ago, and slowly but surely they're starting to really put that in place where it's becoming more competitive, giving you the ability to set the maximum lead costs that you're willing to spend.
Yeah.
When local service ads first came out, it was pretty much unlike Google, where it was just like a fair $25 per lead price, and they would distribute leads pretty much evenly. And I guess that's just part of rolling out a program, right? You're trying to get adoption, and you want people to be happy with it. And for the most part, our clients who are getting results with local service ads, they're doing really well. And it's a predictable flat rate cost per lead. And it's just one of those things when you combine it with a traditional, pay-per-click program, you do really well because you have more exposure on Google. But
you're kind of capped, I feel like, a little bit on local service ads. That's why it's better to have that additional, boost on paid search.
Yeah, I mean, it only takes you so far. You got to keep in mind too, people are trying to get used to, they're just regular consumers trying to get used to, what is that? Do I trust Google? The one thing that doesn't happen on local service ads that would normally happen in a traditional search would be the fact that you're advertising through Google, and Google is the middleman. And Google is supposed to be establishing that trust. And, somebody who clicks on your local service ad, they don't necessarily go to a landing page. There's no offer. It's just, hey, give us a call. We're guaranteed. And there's not much more than that. So the program hasn't really evolved to, hey, how do we help the advertiser build trust, build authority, put in a competing offer against the other players in that program. So it'd be interesting to see where Google takes the program
right,
and where we go from here.
Yeah, because it really only lets you put in like a couple tags, I think, if anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In terms of kind of just like, what do you do, and that it'll advertise it that way. It's not going to let you kind of create your ad copy and just try to stick out from other people. The only way you can really stick out is the Google guaranteed, right?
Yeah, and that's, in home services, that is a requirement, and we'll talk about this up ahead.
Is it a requirement now?
Yeah, so there's Google guaranteed, and then they recently came out with Google pre-screened.
Okay.
So that's their version of, hey, it's not going to be so hard for you to get into the program, because it's hard for them to, get the business information, the certificate of insurance, the licensing.
Mm-hmm. And Google guaranteed is backing up basically the purchase or whatever.
Yeah, I believe it's a $2,000 kind of an insurance policy.
Right.
If somebody has a bad experience, Google will guarantee the work up to $2,000.
I was looking into that. The pre-screen thing, it's like for what, attorneys, financial institutions, something like that.
Yeah, I think those companies have special licenses by the state, and a lot of our clients have special licenses by certain states, but it's not countrywide. For example, Massachusetts, where we're from, a plumber has to be licensed by the state, right? But in other states, that's not necessarily the case. So with an attorney, you have to be licensed by a bar. So the bar has already done that licensing, the background checks, all that. So Google has kind of a lighter screening process. And I would imagine they took some of those requirements away to speed things up. I see a lot of speed in the program, and I guess we'll get into that. But let's drill into kind of a daily, weekly, monthly checklist, if you will, of what you should be doing in your local service ads account.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest things on a day-to-day basis is the speed of answering the calls and responding to requests, right? So that is something that you're being evaluated on through this program. It's kind of a hidden ranking feature. So are you answering the phone call? Are you responding to opportunities in an appropriate and reasonable time frame? And are you giving Google feedback on the leads that they've submitted to you? Right. That's huge, right? Because if you're not giving Google the feedback, what we've started to see is some clients that fall behind on that. They'll start to lose some momentum with the lead flow.
Yeah, they're going to prefer, the companies that are, giving them feedback and, saying that those are good leads versus yes and not others. I could see that for sure.
Yeah. And a few other things too. I think one of the challenges that we've seen with the program, especially with some larger spending accounts, is the increase of competition coming into the program. Local service ads are becoming increasingly popular, right? And we're starting to see a lot of changes in the frequency of how long somebody stays in kind of the top 3 spots in certain search terms. The locations where those ads serve up, they're starting to be restricted. And
wait, what do you mean by that?
Well, if I'm in Boston, for example,
right,
and I live in Woburn, right? So that Boston user may not see the Woburn listing, even though that person services Boston as a provider. So the preferred rank for the top 3 spots typically go to the local,
the closest
provider.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that hasn't always been the case.
Yeah, that kind of helps too with just kind of like spreading out the leads too, right? I mean, like if you are a major player, right, and you cover, let's say a 50-mile, 60-mile radius, and you got a smaller guy that only covers a 5 to 10-mile radius, and he's covering that one city, Google might, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would make sense if they were like, if you're only covering that 10-mile radius, we're going to, feed you some more of those, have you in the top 3 versus this guy who's covering all of these cities. We'll give him the top 3 here, top 3 here, top 3. You know what I mean? Just in terms of spreading it out, it seems like that would make sense.
Yeah, so that the bigger guy becomes the filler where there's a lot less competition.
Right.
So
based on reviews too and things like that. I mean, if the bigger guy has a bunch of crappy reviews and just like isn't, like you said, following up on those leads and, he might still not get, you know what I mean?
There's some other considerations, but going back to the local
right, yeah, the local aspect of it, yeah,
you definitely
that's interesting.
It's new. It's okay. Fairly new. I mean, we're starting to see that. So, and it's not in every single market, but it's starting to roll out where, we have accounts set at like, hey, spend $10,000 a day, $300 a lead. We'll max everything out and we'll spend like $100, right? So, that's just supply and demand and the adoption of local service ads, right? Like, homeowners clicking on them and trusting them and, becoming opportunities. So there's definitely some limitations that we see happening as there's more players coming into the game.
So let me ask you this before we go on. In terms of Google Guaranteed, how many people do you think that are searching for a service know what that Google Guaranteed means from the first time they see it? You know what I mean? Do you think they do a good job of, stating what that means? Because that means a lot to be Google Guaranteed, and it's a pain in the ass to go through, honestly, to get Google. You got to upload all your documents. You got to go through the background checks, which I'm sure maybe we'll talk about that a little later. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's like anything else that Google has rolled out. This program has legs. There's teeth in this program.
Yeah.
I think it's here to stay.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, it's been 5-6 years now that they've taken it from a pilot, and they've grown out of home services. They're into legal. They're starting to get into other verticals like preschools, yoga studios, personal training. Like pretty much anybody who has a Google My Business listing
can do a local service ad.
There will be a local service ads complement, right? So, I think they figured out how to monetize lead generation. In terms of homeowners or just regular people searching, they're going to look at the page and be like, hey, what's this? What's interesting, right? When you look at like a home service, local service ad compared to an attorney or even real estate, you can say, hey, find a real estate agent near me. You'll see the face of that individual. So that kind of sticks out a little bit. Yeah,
interesting.
So, there's definitely some improvements.
That's like a trust icon, it feels like, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Does it not do that with you can't see a logo for like home service or anything?
Not yet. No.
That's what. Yeah, I mean, just in terms of revenue from 2000 when it started back in 2015, I think. Is that what it was?
I believe so. It's
15?
14 or 15.
Okay.
I have my notes here. I'm going to go through that in a little bit.
Okay.
I want to walk you through the history.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
And kind of show you how Google has opened this up and all the things that have kind of opened the door for this program and potentially why they're doing it. We have no idea why they're doing it.
Right.
They kind of hold that close to the vest, right? So other things that you should be doing daily, weekly, monthly in the program. I guess what would you do monthly inside of an LSA account?
Monthly? I mean, make sure I have updated, images. I would go through and check on just the leads themselves. How many leads am I getting? Just verify that all the NAP information is correct, and up to date.
Yep. I'd probably audit my my map, my service list.
Sure, service area.
So service list is big too because sometimes they kind of they'll tuck in new service items and you may not have that checked off and it's new and you don't know about it because they didn't tell you.
Like the COVID-19 stuff, right?
Yeah,
I mean, when that rolled out.
Yeah, when that rolled out, that was a whole thing.
I just went through for, one of my clients and updated it. I said, hey, which of these do you want to check off? They give you quite a bit of, options, which is good, to choose from.
So if I were to maximize this program and to really get everything I can out of it, I guess the one thing you want to be careful of is suspending it or pausing it, right? It's not like pay-per-click where you pause it, it comes back on. In some cases, it does in a non-competitive environment. But if you pause it, it may take you a while to cycle to those top three spots. So
interesting.
I would keep away from pausing it. I would run that as maybe the primary source of advertising if you're in the program and you're doing well. Ask for reviews from homeowners, making sure you get a good review profile. Interact with the leads, making sure that you're following up with them, you're providing feedback to Google, and you're responding to them in a timely manner. To really get as much as you can out of it. Maybe you don't limit your business hours, run it 24 hours a day, send the calls to a call center or something like that. That can really help you get the most out of it. And prevent people from complaining about your services, right? And trying to prevent any kind of bad press from that advertising channel.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I know a lot of my guys run it just kind of while they some of them do it all the time, but some of them are running it while they're in the office, right? So that way they can avoid sending anybody to a call center.
Yep. So without saying the client's name, I mean, why don't you give us some examples of like what you see in volume and cost per lead and things like that?
Yeah. So I mean, I would say the person I see the most success with Google LSAs, local service ads, it gets about, I mean, I just checked on it this month to date, and we're just about a few days from the end of the month. They got about 91 leads.
Okay.
And they do electrical, HVAC, as well as plumbing.
Okay.
And they're getting, they spent about $2,100. So they got about $23 cost per lead on that channel. And mid-month, we noticed that we were pushing heavy on HVAC. We actually had set bids, hey, I'll bid this much for HVAC calls, and then we had way less for electrical. We noticed, hey, our call board, we could use calls in all areas. So I said, hey, let me try this out. Let's go ahead and just throw it on maximize conversions instead of, the targeted tier bids. And so the electrical leads doubled like in a week. Like we just saw those jump right up. Yep. So I think that aspect of it is really important because, let's say, you have HVAC guys sitting around and your electrical is booked out a few days. It is beneficial to be able to go in there and say, okay, I don't want to spend as much on electrical because I need HVAC calls, right? And that's kind of, it's nice to be able to do that. So,
and that's kind of where local service ads are going. It's become more competitive.
Oh, and I will say this too. He gets about 4 or 5 reviews every week, which is really good. Yep. He stays in the top 3 like all the time.
So about 20% of the calls he is getting from the program will come back and give him a review. Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. So,
been with us for a while.
Yeah. So those are pretty good metrics. You can't beat $23 HVAC leads, right? Those are hard to come by. So,
even if it takes 3 to get one like solid, like really good one, I mean that's still like
Yeah. Why not, right?
Right.
So I think we covered all the basics, right? Just being active, right, and staying on top of it. We do that for a lot of clients. We'll grade their calls for them. We'll go through it, and once a month we kind of go through a checklist. So, it's not all that complex. You really don't need an agency to manage your local service ads yet, right? I think that will change. And I wouldn't be afraid to, usually I'm not an automation guy. Like I don't like to let Google say, hey, bid for me on my behalf. I think that can get dangerous especially in PPC, but in local service ads, we've had a lot of success with that. Only because there isn't a huge amount of demand. There is no click fraud. You can't get a competitor to click on your ads and run up your cost per lead.
Which is definitely one great part about local service ads is that you're paying per lead and not per click, right? Yep. I mean, that's
the whole appeal to the program. And what they're doing is they're really giving advertisers confidence that this is we're able to bring you opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of people have been burnt in the past with Google, and this is a way of getting them back into the program. Right?
Yeah, man. Who hasn't been burned by Google? Let's be honest here.
So, all right. So let's move on. Let's talk about I want to cover where I see kind of this program going. I think that's important, but I want to back up. Let's go back to 2005, right? I want to set the stage and kind of walk you through the progressions of Google and their advertising program. So 2005 was really kind of the starting point for Google introducing some type of local business program, and that was the local business center. That's kind of where Google My Business started, right? That's when Maps introduced the local business center, and they kind of integrated and became one. Now, at the end of that year, Google did $6.5 billion in sales.
Not bad for a first year, I'd
2005.
say.
2005. What do you think they ended in 2020?
I don't know, 20, 30?
$147 billion in ad sales, right? So how do you go from 6 to 147 in 15 years? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you do that?
You got to continue to adapt and get better with things and, provide a service that people love and that everyone's using.
Yeah. I mean, you got to make your product sticky, valuable. I don't see a competitor coming in and moving in on Google anytime soon, right? People are just so in tune with Google. how do you do that? I mean, they've figured out how to monetize that first page so good, and I'm going to walk you through the progressions and what they've done. So,
which is funny because they, kind of pose themselves as, like an open library source dictionary type of, which is, one side of things, but they truly are a money machine,
yeah, it is. And, and I'll walk you through some controversies that they've had, and how they're dealing with that and kind of where they're going. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, 2005, they make $6 billion. They introduced reviews in 2007. So 2 years after they put out the local business center, here comes Google Reviews. And it's very different than what it is now, right? A lot of fake reviews. It was pretty easy to, I think you just had stars. You didn't have the ability to put comments in the reviews.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then what they figured out was the program was kind of falling behind compared to like a Yelp, right? Yelp had a much deeper base of people who left reviews and interacted with Yelp. Yelp was like like Yahoo used to be the number one ads provider back in the late 90s. Yelp was like the go-to review place.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
I actually didn't realize that Yelp's been around that long.
Yeah, nobody likes them, right? So 2009, Google goes to Yelp and says, "Hey, we want to buy you out." Yelp rejected the offer, and Google wasn't able to fill the void, by acquiring Yelp because they wanted to put all that data into the Google program, right? So that didn't happen. So a few months later, Google gets aggressive and they rebrand Local Business Center as Google Places, right? And they introduced many more features that competed directly with Yelp.
Okay.
Right?
Did they have was this all map pack stuff too then? I mean, not map pack, but did the places show you on a map kind of where things were?
And I'll get to that. I mean,
okay.
It used to be you'd have 7 businesses in the map pack. Now they're 3. But that's the origination of Google Places is the map pack, right?
Okay.
So they rebrand, and now they're competing with Yelp. So from 2013 to 2014, local Google My Business reviews grew by 80%. Okay, so now Yelp and Google are neck to neck, and I'm up ahead. I'm going to tell you how this translates into local service ads, right? In 2014, Yelp accuses Google of prioritizing its own search over Yelp's, right? Like, okay. I mean, if you own Google, don't you want your own stuff on top of your competition?
Of course.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Like about other this is a publicly traded company, but I mean, who owns Google? The shareholders, right? So, who's gonna tell Google what to do, right? So Yelp's making a big deal about this because they're starting to lose traction and momentum. They're the review provider. Their advertising dollars are falling behind. Google's getting a lot more momentum. Right, keep in mind, you if you have a Google My Business or back then Google Places account, you're getting free leads, right? People calling your business, they're using Google, they're calling you. I mean, you weren't working here, back then, but this is one of those things where, we used to go out and get our clients multiple locations, get them confirmed. It was the easiest thing to do. It was like the wild, wild west of internet marketing, and it was a good time. I mean, we were killing it for our clients, and we really didn't spend that much in advertising. I mean, not what we're doing today. Clients did well with some of the free tools that Google made available, and that was killing Yelp's advertising stream because that back then that was their main competition. Obviously there were some other people out there, but Yelp was the number one review provider, right? So
it was only a matter of time, before Google came and said, "Hey, we're gonna take over this now."
well, yeah, I mean, Yelp didn't want to play ball,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, they made a good offer.
Yeah.
I think it was like $5 billion to acquire Yelp. Back then, that's huge.
Yeah.
Right? They should have taken it.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, they definitely, cut out a brand for themselves. You know what I mean? Everyone knows the name Yelp. You know what I mean? I feel like more probably restaurants is where I see it the most. But obviously, every kind of service, that you can get, you can have a Yelp kind of review. You know what I mean?
Yeah. To me, just in my experience with Yelp is like
kind of shady, right?
It's like the search engine for complainers.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm going to complain about this. My cheeseburger, was cold. Betty, the waitress, she went on a smoke break. She smelled like cigarettes. Right? Like,
it's funny too. Like, most people will go out of their way to write a negative review than like a good review. And one thing I actually noticed just from our stuff is we'll get the occasional bad review. You know what I mean? But like for the most part, like people get a lot of 5-star reviews.
Clients, Our
clients,
yeah. We're 5 stars. Right?
We're 5 stars.
We're 5
stars. No part to me or anything.
Yeah. So that's happening, right? So now Google's gonna turn on its base, right? They've been giving away free stuff, and you're the business owner, you're getting all this free stuff through Google, My Business, and you got good search engine ranking. You're paying back then, you're paying a search engine guy like $5,000 a month to get to the first page, and you're doing all this black hat stuff to get there. Myself included, it used to be very different than what it is today. So 2015, Google squeezes out local searchers, organic searchers, by introducing local search directories. All right. So it used to be you go to Google, you have some ads on the right-hand side, and then you have 10 organic listings. Okay. Sometimes you'd see the map pack, sometimes you didn't, but you had 10 companies that had free exposure organically, plus the map pack, right? And the map pack back then was 7 spots. Right?
Okay.
So, and depending on what you search for, the view was different. There was like 2 or 3 different views.
And just so our listeners are clear, I mean, the map pack, when you say the map pack, it's kind of when you search like a business, you could search, like AdMachines, and then it would show up like on the map with other, if there was any other advertising agencies on the left side, right? It would show like a list of them, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you search for your company name, you'll see the map show up to the right if it's a branded search.
Right.
But if you search something like, heating repair near me, you're going to see a map with 3 listings today, right? And that was, similar to what it looks like now, but it had 7 listings.
Okay. And this is like a yellow pages type of thing that you're talking about now?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So,
local listings, yeah.
So 2015, there was a huge organic change, and now 5 out of the 10 organic companies, the bottom 5, they get pushed to the second page. Okay. And local search directories take over. Guess who the first search directory is?
Google?
Yelp. Right after their reviews.
Right after Google's reviews or Yelp's reviews?
Right after Google's reviews, Yelp is the option. And it's still today in a lot of search environments, a lot of search phrases. Why do you think that is?
Maybe some.
Why is Google?
Courtroom appearances? Maybe someone got sued a few times or something.
Yeah, so I'm going to get there, right? So the after they go ahead and they, just take the little guy out and put these big corporate search directories in there. It was Yelp. At the time, Angie's List. It's now Angie's, Service Magic, Home Advisor. They had a branding change around maybe a year after that. There were other search directories, but those were the major ones.
It's funny to me that people were still trying to do search directories because it's like what are you offering that's different? You know what I mean? Like what were some of the differences of some of these things? Like why would you go like, did any of them have a guaranteed aspect of it, or like obviously they were trusted or something?
Well, I
you know,
mean, in
but
Yelp, you can run ads.
okay,
You can
so advertising was a huge.
You can do that to this day. You know, you can run ads in yellowpages.com. You know, and that's the value of those search directories, because some people go there to find your service. You know, not everybody's going to Google. You know, they go to Google to go to Angie's List, right? And they fill out a form, right?
Right.
So, you know, so I mean, you have all this activity in different places. Obviously, Google is the main player, but you have many more options as a consumer to go find the right fit.
And I guess as a review, for the reviews side of things, Google's obviously come a long way, but like for Yelp and whatnot, people were definitely like, they didn't want to just go to any plumber, or, you know, it's kind of like when you go to get your car fixed, you're kind of expecting to kind of get, you know, swindled a little bit.
Yeah, if
so
you don't know,
so the reviews,
you don't know or trust them.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So reviews, you can at least, like on Amazon, if we buy something on Amazon, we're going to the reviews to making sure what those look like. And I think that's why people are using these kind of directories, because they're seeing other real people's reviews, hopefully real people, right? I mean, you can talk a little bit about that too, the reviews and fake.
Yeah.
Okay,
so,
cool.
the same year that the local search directories, this was a busy year for Google, 2015.
15, yep.
The same year that they, cut out the bottom 5 on the first page, they cut the map pack down from 7 listings to 3. So, you know, and they completely eliminated Google Plus links to the business, right? I don't know if you remember Google Plus. It was kind of like, it was going to be Google's competitor to Facebook. It was going to be their social
right,
media
their
thing.
like social aspect of it. Yeah.
I mean, I remember
that didn't take off.
No, I remember going out and having to set everybody up. You know, it was a whole thing. So, and they eventually eliminated the program, right? So they quietly eliminated this link to Google Plus, right? So,
okay.
A few months later, we get into 2016. Google eliminates the right-hand side of ads. Okay, so remember what I said earlier. How do you go from 6 billion to 150 billion in 15 years?
You make people pay to show up in those spots.
You got to pay to be on that page.
Pay to play.
Pay to play, right? And you know, it's their product. So, you know, there's nothing you can do. You just got to play by their rules, right?
Yeah.
So that's exposure. You know, it used to be that page was like 80% free. Now it's like 15 to 20% free, depending on what you search for. So, and that increases the paid search. Cost per click goes up because the way they formatted the page. Cost per lead is going up. You know, I remember back then we're getting leads like $25, $30, $40. You know, it's gone up maybe 20.
PPC?
Yeah, maybe we're up 20, 30%.
Yeah.
Just by nature of the format of those pages, right? So, so they eliminate the right-hand side of the search engine, and now 2016. Not only have they eliminated that, they've changed the way they serve up information. So now, if you have a Google My Business profile and you're in the top 3, you're in the top 3 for about 8 to 9 months in a wide area, maybe like 25 miles of your area, 30 miles. Like, you own that area in a region. So 2016 comes and they said, wait a minute, we're gonna take your turf where you show up in all of these areas, and we're only gonna give you like a small pocket. So, you know, if you look at your Google My Business listing, and if you're number 1, you're probably number 1 in the city where your office is, along with maybe a few cities close by, but not 10 to 15 miles away, right? So they made that change where you only are going to show up based on the search user's location. So now we're introducing proximity and location-based search into Google. That's kind of the evolution of it. And
I guess the drawback of that is, like, if you want to target a more affluent area that you know has more money, then you kind of screwed if you're not offices in that area, right?
Exactly. And I've had clients move as a result. Like, hey, we're moving here, And I've been on the other side of that research saying, hey, this is where the action is. Your office should be in this area. I mean, I've had a lot of those conversations back then. So, and I remember as these changes, that was probably one of the toughest years in doing this job was mitigating all of these fast changes. Like, we didn't know what was coming. It was a moving target. Right?
Yeah.
And it still kind of is.
Still is, yeah.
But they've definitely slowed down the changes. Imagine going to work and having to, you're doing something a certain way. You're used to doing it, your system, and then all of a sudden you get a whole new way. Like if you're installing a water heater, right? Like there's a certain procedure that you follow to put the tank in, right? Like imagine if, you're drastically changing that, and they change it, the tank is square, and you get different components on it now. Like, that's kind of how it was, right?
Yeah.
So now, this same year, they've pissed off everybody that had good footing, right? And now they test pilot local service ads. Now all of a sudden we get clients getting invitations. Google's cold calling advertisers, and they're saying, "Hey, you want to be part of this program?" And they had a huge effort of, trying to get enrollment in the program. We're doing this, and I think they started out in California. We had a client out there, and he's part of that pilot program.
Okay.
And you start getting all these like free leads, and I think they gave him like the first couple months for free, try it out, and he was loving it. So, now,
was there any sort of like not separation, but like where they try to work around agencies? You know what I mean? Like you said they were reaching directly out to the businesses. Like, were they trying to like not have agencies involved?
No, I mean,
do you think? Or
we got the phone call. I remember having a conversation with the Google rep. They trained us on how to onboard clients.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
okay.
We got involved with the licensing, and I think that we were scheduling a security company, Pinkerton, to do background checks, things like that.
Yeah, because I mean, they don't want to deal with that. You
No,
know what I mean?
nobody wants to do that, and nobody saw the value of it up front. You had a, this is what they're doing, and this is why they're doing it. But as a result, guess what happens when they launch the LSA ads? Another organic guy gets pulled to the second page. So now you went from 5 to 4. Right? So that just moved people down, and they monetized another section of Google, right? So you got more monetization of the page. 2016, the pilot goes out. You lose another organic listing, and now Google Guaranteed comes out as part of the pilot. This forces the background checks, the licensing, the insurance verification, all of that, right? And later in the same year, they start to expand the program aggressively, and they get into 14 different verticals in home services. All right. Now, this is the fun part. This is 2017 comes, and Yelp calls Google out on the expansion, reviews, home service ads, the local service ads, the changes to the platform, and they're citing unfair play and antitrust, right? So, it went
antitrust,
they're becoming a monopoly, right?
Oh.
They own search, and Google's response is, well, we're not the only game in town. There's Yahoo, there's Amazon, you can search in all these other places.
Yeah,
right?
like go somewhere else. You're not going to, but go somewhere else.
Yeah. So they cite that, and they end up in court in the European Union.
Okay.
And they get slapped with a $2.8 billion fine.
Which is pennies compared to what they made.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they make that in a day, right? So, all right, no problem. We'll pay the fine or whatever.
Going off of that, I wonder how much they've had to pay in Google Guaranteed. You know how they say they'll cover things if things don't go right? I'm curious to that number. I wish we had you have the number?
I looked it up. I couldn't find anything. There's not a lot of
I wish we had a tech guy in the corner that we could be like, hey, Jamie, look that shit up.
Yeah. So they get fined $2.8 billion. This is back in 2017. Based on the research, 2021 in December, I think it was December, they lost the appeal. So they had to pay that fine, right?
And this was last year.
Yeah. So a few months later, after this, 2018, Yelp stock plunges 30%. They take a 30% hit. It's just obvious that Google's taking away advertising dollars, right? That's how they survive, right? So, but they're still there on the first page because they don't want any more antitrust. So that's why you see these large corporations and directory searches on the first page.
Ah, okay.
It's not because they want to give away the traffic.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's to avoid
being slammed in court again.
Yeah, they don't want any antitrust, especially in the United States. I mean, they get sued all the time, and I have a few of those to go through here. But
well, I mean, they shouldn't be too worried, I feel like, because, like, realistically, it's ease of access, right? It's whatever's the easiest almost, you know what I mean? So now that Google has this review platform, you go on there. I mean, you make it easy with, like, the LSAs if they show up at the top, and all that.
Yeah.
It's just so easy to see. The stars are right there. How many stars, plus this many reviews. They can just click on that, start reading the reviews versus going into Yelp, going through another window. It's only one click. I understand that, to go to a new page, but still, that's one click that, like, people these days, they just want the fastest information.
Yeah, they have a target on their back, and I think that's what happens when you're, even some of our clients, they're the biggest, they're the best. They take business away.
Yeah,
that's just the nature of the beast in the United States, right? Fair play and antitrust. I mean, that doesn't really exist here, right? So, the rich get richer, and that's that. Like, it's a capitalist society, and those are the breaks, right? That's reality. I think I think what you end up seeing is Google's not like a service, an essential service, right? I mean, is it an essential service to run your life compared to like oil, energy,
right?
That's the whole spirit of antitrust law, right? I mean, it happened back in the 1800s with Rockefeller, right? So you want to, I just don't think there's anything there to say, hey, Google antitrust, right? I mean, politicians say it all the time. I mean, Microsoft got hit with antitrust, but
it's also their platform. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't understand. Like, how can you tell them how to like have their page laid out? If you think your page would look better a certain way, or if you would get more momentum in a certain area than other, you were going to do that. We're like our landing pages or any of our websites, if we make a change that we would see more efficiency and conversion, we're going to make the change, right?
I mean, and that's the argument with Amazon, right?
It's not like it's a privacy thing or something like that. I could see that. I could see, taking a court over privacy type of stuff. But like in terms of antitrust and all, if you're talking about that, it's like, after I said antitrust and privacy, I'm like, oh, those sound like they kind of go together.
Yeah. So, it's not like the antitrust lawsuits, all the time against Amazon, right? Like, they've taken all these small businesses, out, and it's just the way things are going. Uber took over taxis.
And I hate it, honestly, but at the same time, it's just the way that society has maneuvered. I remember watching this like documentary about Walmart back in like freshman year of high school, and it was like really showed you how they killed small businesses. But I'm still going to Walmart to this day. Is the cheapest stuff. Everything's there at the same building. I'm not gonna go pay $35 for something that I can pay $10 for. I mean, it's just Yeah,
I mean, so easy to go to Amazon and hit buy. Especially for hard to find parts, right? Like.
Not only that, but it's going to show up at your doorstep. You don't even have to leave your house.
Yeah, like see this microphone. you can't buy this anywhere, right?
You can only buy it on Amazon, right?
Yeah, I mean, I went to Guitar Center. They didn't have anything in stock. I'm like, all right. I mean, I tried, right?
And you'd pay 4 times the price for this microphone at a
Exactly, right? So but anyway, back to Google. 2018 local service ads begin the aggressive rollout. 2019, Google now dumps like 3 million fake and phony Google My Business profiles, duplicate profiles, listings, things like that. 75 million fake reviews are deleted. And
it's a lot of reviews.
Yeah. So if you had, 2-3 locations and you were like getting free leads, you're probably impacted by that and you lost those secondary locations. You may have even had your primary Google My Business location suspended as a result.
So I thought you could have multiple locations though, in terms of like a Google, separate storefronts essentially. You know what I mean?
I mean, like look at the franchises out there, right? There's Planet Fitness,
Right.
in every second city,
And you can review it per location, which is what they want you to do anyway.
Yeah, I mean they're so the reason they've done all of this, and they're looking for a clean and verifiable database of businesses, and I guess that's where their fair play is, right? They're trying to just make sure that if you have a second location, great. Show me. Let's verify this, right?
So there's people out there creating fake second locations, is what you're saying? Okay.
At your technician's house.
Oh, I'm thinking about putting a new shop up in this place. Could we I
remember doing setting up UPS boxes at the UPS store, right? We'd go buy, $30 a month, PO boxes, and that'd be a Google My Business listing.
Are you incriminating yourself right now?
No, I'm not incriminating myself. That's just the way things worked back then, right?
Yeah.
So
you got to play the game,
Yeah, you got to play to win, right? So and that stopped. So 2019, Google launches local service ads for attorneys. So they proved concept in home services, probably the toughest vertical for them. And now they're going after professional services. So they're scaling the program. 2020, Google introduces Google Screened in place of the Google Guaranteed. It's easier for them to get people into the system and businesses up and running, making that speed to market much faster for them, right? And right around 2020, late 2020 in September, that's when you see kind of this new bidding model with the automation.
Okay.
And it used to be like, hey, what's your budget? We'll give you leads. But now you can set this cost per call, or you can put it on
max conversions.
Max conversions. And now, the price per lead is starting to incrementally creep up because now they've introduced competition, right?
Yeah, and
so,
if you can bid more, there's going to be people out there that will bid more, right?
Absolutely. So now you used to have this kind of democratic process. Now it's going Google style, right? Like you're paying per lead at this point. So after that, December 2021, 200 newspapers are suing Google and Facebook for killing their advertising businesses. Another lawsuit, right? So they keep on getting hit with lawsuits like that, right? So they're getting blamed for that. I don't know why I threw that in there. I figured I'd just throw it in. It would be a good talking point.
That seems interesting to me, that like a newspaper would sue Google. It's like, bro, like you're a newspaper, man. Like,
Yeah. Hey, you have the option to set up a website.
Yeah.
And start your own advertising program. You can sell banner ads in the newspaper. You can go digital.
I mean, the newspapers are smart to do that, honestly, to digitize themselves. I know that some of the major ones definitely have an online, part of their newspaper, which is good. But, it's just, like I said earlier, society, man. It's just the way that it's flowing. I mean, there will always be those fringe people, though, that, like, are holding back from the Google side of things and, want to have that more local, like, just tight-knit kind of, not big brother type of.
Yeah, I mean, I personally like to use small business as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And, try to stay away from big national companies. The hardware store down the street, it's probably like twice the price of Home Depot, but it's convenient. It's local. I don't have to drive, 10 minutes to Home Depot. It took me 3 minutes to get to the hardware store here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's just all the options you have.
I agree. I wish that it was like that with music stuff too. You know what I mean? Like in terms of instruments or, going to get music books for teaching or anything like that. There used to be a lot more music shops, right? You used to have like, Daddy's Junkie Music and, just a bunch of shops, and like those all just kind of like shut down. It's very rare to see those now.
Record stores.
Yeah.
Blockbuster.
Yeah.
Right. Blockbuster. I think there's like one left.
Yeah, one. I think there's one left. Yeah.
So Q4 of last year, Department of Justice, they're preparing an antitrust lawsuit over the advertising business. So this business that we're talking about. So they're currently preparing or in the process of putting some kind of litigation in play against Google again.
To help break things up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what will end up happening. I mean, they split off. They became Alphabet, you know, and now it's Google Search. You know, that's the bread and butter of their business. So maybe they break it up into Google Local Search, and then, you know, who knows? We'll see. 2022, local service ads are expanded to most Google My Business categories. So that's where we're at now. A lot of businesses are getting re-verified. They're going through the paces again. And in order, effective this month, January 2022, in order to start a new Google My Business profile, right? You have to not only, you know, verify your identification, but you need to submit an IRS document. You know, it could be, if you're an S corp, it's like an SS4, you know, a return, something that came from Uncle Sam. You need the business name, the certificate of organization from the state, and you got to give them bank statements over the last 90 days.
Yikes.
That's this month to start a Google My Business profile, right? So they're cracking down hard on, you know, any kind of fraud or fake stuff. So now that you know the history, it's a long history. There's a lot more than that. I mean, I kind of, that's the short version.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want to go through. I didn't want to go through
though.
every single SEO change. I mean, there's 100 of them.
Yeah.
But you know, where does that take you?
Yeah.
As an advertiser, right? I mean, you have local service ads, and you're doing well with them now, and you're taking advantage of the pay per lead model. You know, all good things come to an end at some point, right? So nobody knows. Like they hold that stuff tight to the vest, the strategy. But if you go back to the history and you kind of see how they've operated, at the end of the day, everything becomes monetization, right? How do we monetize that page? I mean, they're already at $150 billion. I mean, at $6 billion, you know, you ask yourself, do I need more? You know, what do you do at $150 billion? Like, it's crazy. So anyway, you know, you can't game the system anymore. There's no cheating, right? It's hard. You know, if you want to cheat the system, you want to set up a second location. You got to lease the building, set up a different corporate structure, put your sign on it, because sometimes they do the video inspections, right? We've done that before with Google My Business. You know, so there's no free leads through Google My Business. You got one entity and you're done with it. Besides, you probably don't want multiple Google My Business locations anyway, because now you're starting to split the equity of your brand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's say you got 2,000 reviews or 100 reviews. You want to get up to 500 or 2,500, right? Why would you give the other location reviews? And that's something to keep in mind if you're like thinking, hey, I want to work the system a little bit and get a second location, and I'm willing to do all that stuff. You got to keep in mind, you got to look at the competition and see who's the big fish in that market ranking already. How many reviews does he have? Because now you got to catch up to him.
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole SEO side of that and ranking. I mean, it can be done. It's just time, effort, energy, and a lot of expense to do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, yeah, it makes sense for some types of businesses, right? I mean, if you're Burger King, for instance, sure, have, you know, a million different locations and have a million different things that people can review, because at the end of the day, you're a household name. Doesn't matter. But
yeah.
in our industry, service, you know, home service industry, yeah, no, I mean, you're right. You gotta make sure you're planting that seed and watering it versus trying to, you know, spread it out across everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of trust there. So you want to put as much trust as you can into the brand.
I could see how a while back, like you were saying, with the whole progression of everything, if you had multiple locations, it might hit, you know, if you were in that location, okay, you're going to be able to get those now. But like you said, it's can't game the system anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it was so bad I remember in the garage door space, it was so bad that they put these requirements in a long time ago. Even on Google Ads, you had to get a special license key to run ads and go through a much deeper verification process to run accounts, because there was a lot of fraud in that vertical.
Interesting.
Yep. So here's where we're going, right? Like where do you think local service ads are going to go? So here's my take on it, right? Our average client in the map pack, Google My Business, they'll see 150 organic calls a month on average. Some
organic, not local service
right through
ads.
the map pack, right? Like, hey,
just for being where they're at and providing the service that they offer.
Yeah, electrician near me, plumber near me, heating contractor near me.
Yeah, furnace repair.
Pick up the phone, call the business. Google tracks all that, right? It's right in your Google My Business reports. Go into the Insights tab, and you'll see how many calls came into your organization.
Yep, how many people clicked.
Now you'll see branded, who searched for you with the branded term versus direct. Now that's what I'm talking about, the direct traffic from search, right? So 150 organic calls. That's free, right? Some clients will do 300 or more, depending on the area or how many verticals that they service. Now, they know exactly how many leads you're generating. It's right inside of your Google My Business portal. Google My Business and local service ads are very similar.
Now, Steve, those Google local service ads reviews and the Google My Business reviews, right? Are those are becoming connected, aren't they? I think I saw something recently.
It's a great question, right? I just for the record, they are now.
Okay.
Now, what you'll find is there's a little lag time. It looks like they're running out of the two different systems now. So the LSA reviews might have a little bit more. And
see, it's interesting you say that, because the company we were talking about, I'll notice it said it'll show how many reviews they got this week. It said 5, right? And then from last week's number of 1347 to this week's like 1360, I'm like, okay, it's showing that you have 5 reviews this week, but now you have a jump of like 12 or 13 reviews. What is that all about?
So if you're a smart guy, and you look at your competition, and we know that our clients are 20%, right? Like that's the rule of thumb. Turn into reviews. If you watch the public knowledge, like if you watch the discrepancies every day, then you kind of figure out how many they're getting, right? Just reverse engineer it, 20%. And just go backwards and figure out like what their lead volume is. So that's one way to do it.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. So, but and that's fairly new when it first started, and even up until just recently. I forget when they merged, but it used to be that the Google My Business profile and the
LSA
or LSAs were two separate entities.
Okay.
Right. They were two different reviews. And now they're merged, right? So maybe they're merging both of these together.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it can definitely get confusing with all the different kind of profiles, but if they do merge, now that they're merging them, I think that'll be much easier for people, Local service ads should just be kind of an extension that you can branch off from your Google My Business profile.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, that's so I'm happy to see that that's the direction.
You really don't know what Google's planning, but my take on it is that map pack gets replaced with local service ads, and that whole section becomes a profit center for them for advertising. So all those companies getting the free organic calls now, they start charging them for that activity, right? So it's no longer an organic play, which leaves that page, more than 80% monetized, where back 15 years ago it was like 80% organic, right? So that's where I see that heading, and then where they have the local service ads now, it's in their best interest to put a pay-per-click ad there, right? I mean, they make money there, they make money in the map pack, so that's unfortunately where I see it going, just based on their history, right? They've made all these moves. Every move is very calculated. It seems like when they make a pretty aggressive move that pisses a lot of people off, they come back with something to make them happy, right? So we're taking away your organic listings, but we're giving you this program called local service ads. We're only charging you $25 a lead, right? And I think you'll start to see those lead costs creep up as well. So that's where you have it. I mean, at this point in time, I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, right?
Yeah, I mean, so is like Yelp still on the first page of like results and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, Yelp's there. It changes based on what you're searching for, but for the most part, they're there.
Yeah,
and I think they'll continue to be there as long as there's this, legal issue over their heads for being a monopoly, along with other directories, right? I think if there was another kind of Yelp solution, that maybe they start to take over that area. I don't see Google long term keeping Yelp in a position, and who knows what Yelp's business model is going to be. I mean, Yelp, and that's a whole other podcast talking about Yelp and their practices. Talk about lawsuits. There's a lot of lawsuits with Yelp. So there you have it, the down and dirty of local service ads.
That was good. That was great, informative.
Yeah, I mean, how to do it, the history.
Yeah.
It's taking me back to some pain in my life, right? And then where it's going, right? So there you have it.
So it's kind of a pain to get it kind of. It sounds like it's a very rigorous effort to get it all set up now, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, you just have to be a legitimate business.
Yeah.
And
go through the stages of kind of
Yeah. I mean, your accountant's going to have all that information anyway. So.
Yeah. So hey, listen, if you guys are watching this and you have your own business and you're thinking about getting into advertising, or you already are in advertising, and you could use some extra assistance, make sure to reach out to us. We could definitely help you out. We got a lot of knowledgeable people on our team.
Is that the sales pitch of that?
Yeah, of course. What do you mean?
Yeah. Well, that's if somebody's still listening.
We've learned some traits. This was a great podcast, honestly.
With the history.
No way, man. Right. I think that was really great. So
yeah, where can people find us? With homeservicemarketing.com.
Homeservicemarketing.com. We're on all major platforms. Spotify, Apple, everywhere you can find a podcast.
So here
we're there. YouTube. So. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in on this one. We will be back. Let us know what you want to hear about also going forward on this podcast. We would be more than happy to cover all your topics. And, thanks a lot.
All right.
We'll see you next time.
All right, man.
See ya.
See ya.